Halloween week. Special. The police bodycam footage. They tried to delete. In towns where people know what kind of truck you drive by the sound of the muffler, trouble rarely announces itself with thunder. It's quieter than that. A hiss behind drywall, a whisper through cedar trees, a lover's argument pressed thin against a kitchen window. Officer Daniel Rake knew that rhythm. 12 years on the force had taught him the difference between a loud night and a dangerous one. So when dispatch said domestic disturbance, Sandpiper Lane, he just sighed, rolled his shoulder, and tapped the bodycam awake like you'd nudge an old friend. Nothing heroic, nothing cinematic, just a man heading toward another front porch with a porch light that hadn't been changed since Easter. Sandpiper was a short street, 3 homes, all set back from the road like they were listening for something. The address belonged to a single-story ranch with a chain-link fence and a ceramic pelican that watched the mailbox like a security guard on break. The call notes were thin, as usual. Yelling heard, possible glass breaking. Then the kind of silence that makes you think the phone fell face down on linoleum. Rake parked without sirens, kept the engine running because old habits feel safe, and stepped out into air that carried the damp cold of the river. He told himself, like he always did, that most people argue because they're afraid, and fear wears anger like a jacket that doesn't fit. The bodycam blinked its blue LED, a little heartbeat against his chest. Maybe that's the strange comfort of technology, right? It pretends to be a witness when nobody else wants the job. It doesn't judge. It doesn't flinch. In theory, it never forgets. Rake knew the camera's little quirks, the way it pulled the shadows longer than they were, the way it made porch bulbs flare like mini-suns. He'd learned to talk to it quietly, almost like a prayer, so that later there would be a record with his voice in it, steady and human. Inside, the house smelled like air freshener and something else, something sick sweet. You only notice when you stop pretending not to. A hallway stretched away, the kind builders design when they want to save money on character. On the left, light flickered through a cracked bedroom door. On the right, a framed family photo leaned crooked, as if the wall had a limp. Rake called out, soft, "Police," the word landing gently, the way you might set a plate down for someone who's lost their appetite. No answer, just a small clatter, like a spoon settling in a sink after the water's gone. Domestic calls teach patience in a way nothing else does. You can't barge, but you can't linger. You learn to keep your voice warm and your feet ready. Rake found the kitchen empty, 2 plates out, a third drying in the rack, which told a story no report ever bothers to include. He took in the details, because details are where truth hides. A calendar stuck on last month, a child's crayon drawing magneted to the freezer, a sticky note that said, "Call Ruth," underlined twice. People think cops look for guns first. Mostly, they look for context. Then he heard it, the particular silence that follows someone trying not to cry. Down the hall, behind a closed bathroom door, water ran too long for anyone to be brushing teeth. He moved closer, one hand out, palm forward, that universal sign for "I'm not here to break you." The knob turned easily. "Ma'am," he said, his voice coming out same as always. A mile of driveway gravel smoothed by rain. And that's when the camera began to act strange. Not visibly, not yet. Nothing Hollywood. Just a tiny hiccup on the timestamp in his peripheral vision. A blink where seconds didn't line up like they should. The door opened to a mirror catching him and the woman in jittery reflection. Mid-30s, robe. A bruise blooming on the cheek like a storm cloud caught in skin. She flinched, then straightened quickly, the way people do when they remember their dignity is watching. "I'm fine," she said, which almost always means, "I'm not." Rake kept the door wide for the steam to escape, let the room breathe. Behind her, another door, the one to the master bedroom, stood half-closed, as if it had changed its mind halfway through an argument. "You alone?" he asked. She hesitated. That half-second hesitation is everything in a house like this. It's the difference between a quiet report and a long night. "He left," she said, and even the air didn't believe her. Rake stepped past her, nodded toward the robe pocket where a phone pressed a rectangle into the fabric. "Did you call?" Another pause. "No," she said. "The neighbor did. People hear things. People always hear things. They just pretend they don't until the fence starts to rust." He called for another unit, because routine isn't bravery, it's experience. Officer Tenley Reed was closest, and she answered with the clipped cheer of a woman who had learned to keep her fear in a tidy lunchbox. Rake waited in the hallway, listening. It was a house full of almost a family photo, almost a dinner, almost an apology. He glanced again at the Bodycam's time. For a blink, it read 02.1741, then 02.1738, like it had tripped on its own feet and fallen back a step. He frowned. He'd seen glitches, sure, but glitches don't usually feel like choices. When Tenley arrived, the front door clicked twice, once for the lock, once for the chain that wasn't there. She slipped in, her steps a careful whisper. They did another pass, room by room, calling out a name the woman finally offered up. "Colton." No Colton. No fresh footprints on the back stoop. No open windows trying to pretend they hadn't been used. The house offered them honest emptiness, and honest emptiness can be its own kind of lie. Rake's radio crackled and died for a breath, as if the signal was being politely interrupted by some other priority they couldn't hear. They took statements, names, the dull inventory of damage that never makes the news. The woman said she didn't need a hospital, which might have been true, and might have been pride. Rake kept his tone gentle, the way you talk when you know someone has practiced not being helped. He checked the timestamp again, maybe out of habit, maybe because a part of him felt watched by something too quiet to name. "02-1902, good. 02-1906, good." Then, casually, like a shrug, 12:44:13, midday. Tomorrow. The numbers held for 2 beats, then corrected themselves. All neat and innocent. And here's the thing about people like Rake. People whose job is to keep order from falling through the cracks. They learn to notice what doesn't fit. A time that jumps ahead by 10 hours is like seeing a portrait wink. You don't make a scene. You mark it, tuck it behind your eye, and you keep moving. He wrapped the call. He cleared the scene. He did the paperwork on his hood because the kitchen table felt too intimate. Tenley drove the woman to her sister's place a few streets over. Rake logged the footage, watched the upload bar inch along, and told himself it was just another night that didn't quite decide how bad it wanted to be. By morning, the footage was gone from the system. Not missing, not corrupted, gone, like it had never existed. The official note was bland enough to pass as truth, file indexing error. Rake's request for tech support came back with a smiley face in the email signature and a promise to look into it. He didn't tell anyone about the timestamps. He hardly admitted it to himself. But that small, impossible moment had a way of tapping on the inside of his skull. Because if a camera can jump to tomorrow, who gets to decide what really happened today? 3 days later, Officer Rake was back on night patrol, and Sandpiper Lane had already turned into a story the guys told between calls. The woman moved in with her sister. The house went quiet. Case closed, at least on paper. But the human mind doesn't file things away that neatly, does it? Especially when a small, impossible detail keeps echoing through the corners of memory. Rake couldn't stop seeing those numbers on the screen. 12:44, 13 p.m. The way they burned there, like the future had briefly leaned in to see how tonight would end. He tried to reason with himself, because that's what grounded men do. Maybe a clock sync issue. Maybe Bodycam software lag. Maybe 1,000 little things that make sense if you don't think too hard. But thinking too hard was his specialty. So on his next shift, when dispatch was quiet and the city slept like a held breath, he parked behind the department and went into the records room, just to check, just to make sure. The system was supposed to be simple. Every Bodycam file uploaded to a secure database, date, time, duration, nothing special. But the moment he searched for the Sandpiper call, the entry blinked red. Access restricted. File quarantined. That never happened, not for small-town domestic calls. That kind of lock was reserved for active homicides or internal investigations. And there was no internal investigation, not officially anyway. He clicked again, this time bypassing the front end. Years on, the job had taught him the back doors in software, the same way years in life teach you the back doors in people. One more click, a confirmation prompt. And suddenly, there it was. A thumbnail, the same blue LED light reflecting off his vest, the same grainy perspective. He shouldn't have been able to see it, yet the file opened like it had been waiting for him. The time code in the corner flickered wildly before stabilizing at 02:17:41 a.m., the moment before everything got strange. Only now there was sound, a faint hum under the static, low and pulsing, like an electrical line running through a heartbeat. He adjusted the volume. The hum got louder, rhythmic. Then, voices. Not the woman's, not his own. A male voice, distant but distinct, repeating something over and over in a tone that made his skin crawl. You can't stop what's already recorded. The words looped, distorted, like a corrupted file repeating the same command. Rake froze, watching himself on screen, standing still in that hallway. Except his real memory didn't include that part. He never stood still. He never heard a voice. The Rake in the footage tilted his head as if listening to something just outside human hearing. Then the picture jerked, colors bleeding, the timestamp leaping again, not forward this time, but backward. 12:44:13 p.m. became 01:06:59 a.m., then 02:00, then The footage rewound itself faster and faster until it froze on a single frame, the bathroom mirror. But in this frame, the reflection didn't match. The man in the mirror wasn't moving the same way as the man holding the camera. His eyes were open wider, his mouth shaped into something that could have been a grin or a scream. Rake leaned back, his heart pounding so hard it blurred his vision for a second. He wanted to shut it off, but some primal instinct told him not to, because the next frame, the next one, would tell him something he needed to know. That's what curiosity does to people. It dangles just enough truth to keep them from running. Then the sound cut out completely. The timestamp froze at a new number, 11/14/2025, 2 weeks in the future. The image shifted one last time, showing the same sandpiper house, but daylight poured through shattered windows. The front door was gone. The ceramic pelican by the mailbox lay broken in half, and in the center of the frame, something was moving, something that looked human, but too slow, too deliberate. He shut the laptop. The screen went black, and for half a heartbeat, his own reflection stared back at him. Only it was smiling. He told no one. Who would believe him? Who would risk a career to chase a ghost inside a corrupted file? But later that night, sitting alone in his patrol car, he noticed something chilling. The Bodycam light on his chest, the same one that blinked blue when recording, turned red, slowly, steadily. And when he checked his wristwatch, it showed 12:44:13, the time from the footage. He didn't touch the camera, didn't breathe. The radio hissed once, then went silent, as if someone had pressed mute on the whole world. In the distance, a single house light flickered on Sandpiper Lane, the house that was supposed to be empty. And that's when he knew whatever had been recorded that night hadn't stayed in the footage. It had followed him out. Officer Rake wasn't a paranoid man by nature. You don't survive over a decade in law enforcement by jumping at shadows. You learn to catalog the impossible and set it aside until the facts catch up. But this thing with the footage, it refused to be filed away. It followed him through the week like static in the back of his skull. Even off duty, he found himself checking his phone at 12:44 p.m. every day, expecting something. Sometimes he'd swear the Bodycam LED blinked from the drawer it was stored in at the station, like it was remembering him. The department's IT guy, Eric Foley, was the kind of man who still called computers machines. He'd been around since the floppy disk era, the sort who wore polo shirts with coffee stains that mapped out his week. If anyone could explain the corrupted footage, it was him. So Rake brought it up casually one morning over stale coffee and vending machine muffins. "Hey, Eric, ever see a timestamp glitch like that before? Like, say, jumping ahead a few hours, maybe even days." Foley looked up from his keyboard, squinting as if the question itself were a trick. "Days? Nah. Sometimes you get a few seconds off if the unit hasn't synced to the cloud. But days, that's not a glitch. That's a rewrite." Rake frowned. "Rewrite?" Foley leaned back, his chair protesting. "Yeah, A rewrite happens when the metadata gets replaced, usually on purpose. Means someone accessed the root file, changed the embedded record, and scrubbed the evidence trail. Basically, it means someone didn't want the original to exist. Rake waited for him to laugh, to tell him it was a bad joke. But Foley didn't. His eyes lingered on the officer for a beat too long, then darted away. Listen, if this is about the Sandpiper call, just drop it. The system shows it was deleted by order of the chief. The chief, Rake said slowly. Why would the chief delete a domestic disturbance clip? That's what I asked, Foley replied, his voice dropping lower. Got told it was an internal error correction. That's not a real thing, by the way. He closed his laptop a little too quickly and stood. You didn't hear that from me, okay? It was the first time Rake realized how deep the silence went. He'd seen cover-ups before, small-town politics, rookie mistakes swept under rugs. But this was different. This was organized, intentional. The kind of erasure that didn't just hide evidence. It rewrote memory itself. He decided to visit the house again. No backup, no paperwork. Just curiosity wearing a badge. The Sandpiper property was dark, a for sale sign half buried in frost. He parked a few houses down, left the lights off, and listened to the engine tick as it cooled. It was around midnight when he stepped out, his flashlight slicing through the fog like a scalpel. The door was unlocked this time, swinging open with a sigh that sounded almost relieved. Inside, the air felt different. He couldn't tell if it was colder or just heavier. Dust hung in lazy spirals. The calendar was gone. The fridge was unplugged, and the floor near the bathroom door bore faint scuff marks. 2 lines, parallel, dragging inward. He followed them, his boots whispering against tile. The bathroom mirror had a crack across it now, and in the center of the crack, a faint fingerprint smudge. Only it wasn't shaped like a normal print. It spiraled inward, like someone had pressed their finger and twisted, leaving a trail of oily residue that shimmered faintly in his flashlight beam. Then his radio crackled, though he hadn't touched it. Static, then a voice, distant and glitching through the signal. Unit 14. Responding. Sandpiper Lane. His heart stuttered. That was his call from 3 nights ago. The exact same dispatch line. He froze, listening. Possible domestic disturbance. 1023 Sandpiper. The voice repeated. Calm, procedural. Then his own voice answered back, from the past. Copy that. En route. Rake turned off the radio, but the sound didn't stop. It continued, faintly, as though the walls themselves were replaying the transmission, a loop of a night that was supposed to be over. Then something else, quieter, threaded through the echo. A woman's sob, the same tone as before, the one that had drawn him to the bathroom door. He took one slow step backward. The hallway light flickered. For a second, the shadows didn't follow the movement of his flashlight. They lagged behind, like something in the dark was thinking about moving, deciding whether to mimic him or not. He left, not because he was afraid. That's what he told himself anyway. But because he knew when the rules of reality had stopped applying. The next morning, he filed a routine maintenance request for his Bodycam, claiming audio distortion. the technician on shift, a young guy named Brenner, took the unit with a grin and promised a quick fix. But when Rake came back an hour later, Brenner was gone. His workstation was logged out. The camera wasn't in the bin. Foley found him in the hallway. "You didn't hear," he whispered. Brenner called out sick, said he's taking the rest of the week off. Rake didn't reply. He just nodded, the kind of nod you give when you realize something invisible has started choosing people one by one. That night, another officer, Tenley Reed, texted him, "Dan, you ever see weird stuff in the footage?" He called her immediately, voice tight. "What do you mean, weird?" "The Sandpiper call. They said mine didn't upload. But when I checked the backup drive at home, there's something there. I think it's your voice, only it's saying my name." Rake's stomach dropped. "Don't play it, Tenley." But she already had. And on the other end of the line, through the faint static, he heard her breathing change, slow, deliberate, almost synchronized with that same electric hum he'd heard in his file. "Dan," she whispered, "it's showing tomorrow's date." Then the line went dead. Rake didn't sleep that night. He sat on his porch, watching the sunrise bleed over the rooftops, thinking about timestamps, mirrors, and memory. Somewhere inside him, he felt it. Whatever had been caught in that footage wasn't just an error. It was an event still unfolding, one that had chosen its witnesses. And in the quiet between birdsong and wind, he realized something even worse. The camera wasn't just recording what had happened. It was deciding what would. By morning, Officer Tenley Reed didn't show up for roll call. No text, no voicemail, no explanation. She wasn't answering her radio either. That might have been routine if it were anyone else, but Tenley wasn't the type to miss a shift. She was the one who arrived early, just to sit in her cruiser with a breakfast sandwich and hum old Fleetwood Mac songs until briefing started. So when her empty parking spot stared back at them, Rake knew something had gone wrong, something that wouldn't fit neatly in the department's logbook. The chief kept the tone casual during the morning update, but there was tension underneath, a tautness in his voice like he was forcing it to sound normal. "Officer Reed is taking personal leave," he said, eyes darting over the room. "Let's move on." No one asked questions. That's how it worked here. Curiosity was a luxury they couldn't afford, not when you depended on the same people to have your back on the street. Still, a few officers exchanged looks, and Rake noticed one thing that didn't belong. The chief's laptop was open, and on the corner of the screen, a Bodycam upload window flickered, time-stamped 2 days ago, Tenley's last shift. He caught Eric Foley later by the vending machines, pretending to refill a coffee cup that had been empty for 10 minutes. "You saw it too, didn't you?" Rake asked quietly. Foley hesitated. "Yeah, Reed's footage, but it's gone now. Chief had me pull every local copy, said it was for internal review. Thing is, internal review doesn't mean deletion. It means backup. Backup to where?" Foley's face went pale. "You really don't want to know that, Dan. But I'll tell you this. Whatever's happening, the footage didn't come from her camera. The data's reading as a mirror file." "A mirror file?" "Yeah. like someone else's camera recorded the same event from the opposite side of the lens. That didn't make sense, not in any logical world. But neither did timestamps from the future. Rake felt a creeping weight at the base of his skull, the same electric hum that had haunted him since the sandpiper incident. He didn't realize he was gripping his coffee cup until it cracked in his hand, warm liquid seeping between his fingers. That night, he drove to Tenley's house. The blinds were shut, the driveway empty. Her cruiser was gone. He walked the perimeter, feeling like a criminal in his own uniform. On the back porch, the door wasn't locked, just latched loosely, as though someone had closed it behind them without looking back. Inside, the air smelled faintly metallic, like static or ozone after lightning. A single cup of tea sat cold on the counter, its surface filmed over with dust. Her computer was still open. No password. The screen glowed faintly. The same police upload software he'd seen in the chief's office. A single file sat in the folder. Sandpiper Sync. MP4. His breath caught. He clicked it open. The video was shot from Tenley's Bodycam, showing the same domestic call, only this time the perspective was reversed. He could see himself, Officer Rake, walking down the hall, his flashlight cutting the dark. The woman wasn't visible. The bathroom door was shut. Tenley's voice whispered, "Dan, behind you." But on the video, Rake didn't turn. Then the timestamp shifted. The footage jumped 10 hours forward to daylight. The same house, but destroyed, holes in the walls, the mirror shattered into dust. And standing in the middle of the room was Tenley, staring at the camera, pale and motionless. She raised her hand, palm facing outward. On her wrist, the date, 11/14/2025, was written in marker, the same date from Rake's corrupted footage. The sound rose. That low hum again, the mechanical purr of something alive, but not human. Then Tenley's eyes flicked upward, and the body cam tilted as though something invisible was lifting her by the throat. Her feet left the ground just a few inches, and then the video cut out. Rake sat frozen, heart pounding in his ears. He knew he should call it in, but what could he possibly report? A missing officer appeared in footage from the future. They'd laugh, then pull his badge. Still, he copied the file onto his flash drive before leaving, telling himself it was for evidence, though a darker part of him admitted he just didn't want to be alone with it. When he got back to the precinct, the chief was waiting. "Rake," he said, voice too calm, "come into my office." Inside, the blinds were closed. The air smelled faintly of toner and cigarette smoke. On the desk, his own body cam sat, disconnected from its charger. "You accessed restricted files," the chief said, sliding a report across the table. "We can't have that." Rake met his eyes. "Where's Reed?" The chief didn't blink. "She's gone. Let it rest." "You deleted her footage." The chief leaned forward, his tone sharpening. "That footage isn't meant to exist. You think you're the first one to see it? Every officer who's watched those files has disappeared. Maybe start listening to orders, son, before the same thing happens to you." Rake stood up slowly, pulse roaring in his ears. "If you're covering something up, I'll find out." "You already did," the chief said quietly. You just don't understand what it is." He left the office shaking. When he reached his cruiser, his Bodycam light was blinking again, but he hadn't turned it on. It was recording, and when he looked down at his reflection in the cruiser window, the man staring back wasn't wearing his uniform anymore. He was wearing Tenley's. Officer Daniel Rake didn't remember driving home that night. He remembered the chief's words, the way his voice cracked ever so slightly when he said, "You just don't understand what it is." But the rest came in broken flashes. His dashboard lights flickering even though the ignition was off. His radio whispering with no signal. And that cold reflection, the one that looked like him but wasn't, still watching from the cruiser window long after he'd stepped away. When he finally reached his apartment, something felt wrong before he even opened the door. His key didn't slide in right, like the lock had been replaced. Inside, everything looked the same, but not right. The air smelled faintly of bleach, and all his picture frames were slightly tilted, every single one leaning a few degrees to the left. It was the kind of detail that only meant something to the person who lived there. To anyone else, it would just look careless. But Rake didn't live carelessly. Someone had been there. He went straight to his laptop, the flash drive still in his pocket like a loaded gun. The file from Tenley's computer, Sandpiper Sync MP4, was intact. He should have deleted it. Every instinct told him that watching it again would make things worse, not better. But the human brain, when faced with horror, has a strange craving for repetition. It's like picking at a scab, a way to prove to yourself that you're still the one in control. He pressed play. The screen flickered to life, colors overexposed, sound warbling. The same footage of the Sandpiper house played again. But this time, something new was visible. In the reflection of the broken mirror behind Tenley, a shape hovered, blurred, colorless, like a person seen underwater. It didn't move with her. It moved with the camera. And when the timestamp jumped again, the figure was standing where Rake should have been, his same posture, his same uniform, but the face was unfinished, as if the camera couldn't decide what to show. He paused the video. On the screen, the timestamp blinked. 11/14/2025, 12:44, 13 p.m., 2 weeks ahead, the same moment that had haunted him since the first glitch. Only now, beneath it, new text appeared. Faint at first, then sharper. "Upload complete." He sat back. His body went cold. The footage wasn't corrupted. It was transmitting. Across town, the police department's database registered a new entry under Rake's ID. The file uploaded automatically, even though his Bodycam was turned off. No one saw it except the IT system and Eric Foley, who happened to be working late. At 1:06 a.m., Foley called Rake. "Dan, listen to me carefully. The system just pulled a new file from your camera." "I didn't record anything," Rake said, heart pounding. "I know. But the feed shows your location, your apartment." Rake froze. "Eric, are you seeing me on the screen right now?" Foley's voice trembled. "No, man, it's not showing you. It's showing the house on Sandpiper Lane. But there's something else. There's movement in the background. It looks like..." The call cut off. Rake threw on his jacket and rushed to the station. When he arrived, the front doors were unlocked. Odd for this hour. The lobby lights flickered overhead, buzzing like a swarm of insects. Foley's office door was half open, the computer still humming. The monitor glowed with that same frozen frame from the footage, Tenley's body suspended mid-air in the sandpiper hallway, her head turned slightly toward the camera. But now there was someone standing behind her. Rake leaned in closer. His stomach dropped. It was him. Not the man from the video. Not the reflection. It was the real him. Wearing his current uniform, standing exactly as he was now. Leaning forward to look at the screen. Except the timestamp said 11/14/2025, 2 weeks from now. Behind him, something creaked. He turned sharply, flashlight drawn, but the hallway was empty. Only the faint echo of dripping water somewhere deep in the building. He moved cautiously toward the sound, the beam trembling just slightly. The dripping led him downstairs. The old records basement, where flood damage had shut off half the lights years ago. Down there, the smell hit first. Mildew, copper, something that might have been rot. Then the hum began again, the same low frequency that had haunted the footage. It pulsed through the concrete walls like a heartbeat too large to belong to anything living. And in the center of the basement, 3 old servers blinked erratically, their indicator lights flickering red instead of green. He stepped closer. The hum grew louder. On one of the screens, lines of code scrolled so fast they blurred, repeating a phrase over and over. Data retains memory. Another screen displayed Bodycam thumbnails, hundreds of them. Some were his, some were Tenley's. Others showed faces he didn't recognize, officers from different towns, different states. Each file bore the same timestamp, 11/14/2025, 12:44:13 p.m. He tried to shut the system down, but the keyboard didn't respond. The lights overhead dimmed. A faint whisper bled from the speakers, distant but unmistakably human. It was Tenley's voice. Dan, don't let it finish uploading. The screens went black. Then one turned back on. The camera feed showed a live image of him, standing in the basement, staring at the monitor. The red recording light blinked steadily in the corner, except he wasn't wearing his body cam. Rake stumbled backward, heart hammering, the hum now vibrating in his bones. The feed followed his movement like something unseen was circling him, broadcasting every step. Then the picture glitched, and the walls of the basement appeared cracked, the lights shattered, the entire place looking abandoned and decayed, like years had passed in a blink. The timestamp changed again. 11/14/2025, 12:44:13 p.m. Then the sound cut to static, and through it, a male voice spoke, slow and deliberate. You can't stop what's already recorded. Rake lunged for the power cord and yanked it out of the wall. The hum stopped. The lights flickered back to normal. Silence returned. He stood there, shaking, alone in the dark, the unplugged monitor still glowing faintly, as if it didn't need power anymore. When he looked up, the reflection in the glass wasn't his own. It was smiling, and for the first time since this began, Officer Daniel Rake realized the truth wasn't in the footage. The footage was inside him. The human brain has a cruel way of preparing for the end. It starts with resignation, then turns to repetition, as if rehearsing your last moments might somehow soften them. That's how Officer Daniel Rake spent the days that followed. He didn't sleep much, didn't eat much either. He'd wake every night at 12:44, no alarm, no noise, just his body knowing that something was counting down inside him. Every clock in his apartment blinked the same frozen time now. He tried changing the batteries, unplugging them, even smashing one. But when he came back an hour later, the shards on the floor still glowed faintly. 12:44, 13. He started writing notes, not for anyone else, but for himself, because he wasn't sure how long himself would still mean something. "Don't look in the mirror," one note read. "Don't watch the footage again. Don't go near Sandpiper Lane." Simple rules, like instructions left by someone who'd already failed to follow them. But the department had other plans. On November 13th, the chief called him into the conference room. A new officer, young, too eager, the kind that smiled too much, sat at the end of the table, scrolling on a laptop. "We've recovered your corrupted files," the chief said, his tone calm, almost rehearsed. "The state investigators want to review them tomorrow. We're hosting a presentation at noon. Tomorrow, November 14th. Rake's stomach dropped. "What time?" The chief smiled thinly. 12:45. He left the meeting on autopilot, barely hearing the rest. The air outside felt too still, like the whole world was waiting for a cue. He drove aimlessly until dusk, circling the same streets without realizing it, until, somehow, inevitably, his headlights cut across the sign, Sandpiper Lane. The house was different now. The for sale sign was gone. The windows were boarded up, but something glimmered faintly behind the cracks, like candlelight or static. Against every rule, every instinct, he stepped inside. Dust coated everything, but not thickly, as if someone had been through recently. The same layout, the same quiet hum beneath the silence. He followed it to the bathroom. The mirror was gone. In its place, wires hung loosely from the wall, connected to a small black device blinking red. It looked like a Bodycam charger. He reached out, fingertips brushing metal, and the world blinked. Suddenly, he wasn't in the dark bathroom anymore. He was standing in the station's conference room. Midday sunlight streamed through the blinds. Around him, his coworkers sat watching a projector screen. The chief stood near the front, arms crossed. On the screen, the footage was playing. His footage. Only it wasn't from the night on Sandpiper Lane. It was showing this exact moment. The conference. Them watching. The timestamp in the corner read 11/14/2025, 12:44, 13 p.m. Rake couldn't breathe. The image flickered, the colors dimming, and one by one, the faces in the room turned toward him, not all at once, but gradually, unnaturally synchronized, eyes wide and unfocused. The chief's mouth opened like he was about to speak, but the words came from the speakers instead. "You can't stop what's already recorded." The lights flickered. The hum returned, deep, vibrating through the floor. The projector distorted, the picture stretching, collapsing, until it showed the Sandpiper house again. In the video, someone was standing in the doorway. Him. Only this time, The uniform was blood-stained, and his expression was wrong. The screen zoomed closer, too close, until the face filled the frame. His eyes were black, his lips trembling like the footage was breathing. Then the voice came again, quieter this time. "It's your turn, Daniel." The projector exploded in a burst of light. The room plunged into darkness. Screams, scrambling chairs, the smell of burning plastic. When the lights came back, everyone was gone. The chairs still warm, the coffee cups half full. And in the center of the table sat his body cam, blinking red. It was recording. Later, when investigators from the county arrived, they found the building empty. The only thing left running was the upload server in the basement. At exactly 13 p.m., the system had transmitted a single file to every active body cam in the state. Officers from other towns reported seeing brief flashes of distorted footage. The Sandpiper house, the hallway, a man in uniform smiling at the camera, before their screens went black. The department's official report listed it as a network breach. The chief's name was nowhere to be found, but the next week, a new folder appeared on the central server, automatically synced to every connected device. The file was untitled, time-stamped 1 year in the future. And in the background of the first frame, faint but visible, was Officer Rake, standing in the doorway, looking right into the camera, whispering something you could barely make out, unless you turned the volume all the way up. "Don't record." Detective Erin Mallory had seen her share of strange cases. She'd worked 12 years in digital forensics, dealt with stalkers who coded their own malware, and hacked surveillance systems that could track a fly across a living room. But she'd never seen anything like this. The report on her desk was thin, just 3 pages, but the weight of it felt wrong. The kind of wrong that hums in your bones before your mind understands why. The report header read, "Sandpiper Incident. Internal Transfer. 11/2025. Beneath it, a single line caught her attention. File origin. Cross-departmental bodycam sync anomaly. An anomaly. That was the official word. In digital terms, it meant the network behaved in ways not accounted for by human design. In human terms, it meant something else was in control. Erin opened her laptop, connecting to the secure evidence drive. She scrolled past hundreds of identical entries, every bodycam file from the state, all showing the same timestamp, 12:44:13 p.m. The strange part, each file had been recorded locally. That wasn't possible. The system was decentralized. No single server could push data into every active unit simultaneously, unless, of course, something inside the system had rewritten the rules. She clicked one file at random. The footage began in total blackness, a faint hum audible beneath. Then, light flickered. A view from a patrol car dashboard. The officer's hands on the wheel. Radio chatter, everything normal, until the timestamp froze. The clock in the corner blinked, digits melting into symbols that looked almost like letters. Then the radio cut out, replaced by static. Through the static came a voice. Not loud, but clear enough to send chills down her spine. "You shouldn't have watched it." Erin slammed her laptop shut. Her heart was pounding so hard she had to steady her hands on the table. Across the room, her partner, Detective Marco Hines, looked up from his monitor. "You okay?" She hesitated. "Did you just hear the voice?" "Yeah." He nodded slowly, eyes wide. "It came through my speakers, too. I wasn't even playing anything." They stared at each other for a long second, both realizing what that meant. The footage wasn't playing through the network. It was broadcasting. Marco rubbed the bridge of his nose. "All right, so, theory time. We're looking at some kind of data corruption that can self-propagate, like a virus, right? Except instead of deleting files, it copies visual data across every endpoint." "Except," Aaron said, "it doesn't just copy data. It copies moments." He frowned. "Explain." She reopened the laptop carefully, turning the screen away from both of them. "The timestamps aren't random. They're all the same instant. The footage isn't a recording of what's happened. It's a recording of what will happen when the file is viewed." Marco stared. "You're saying it's predictive." "I'm saying it's recursive. The act of watching creates the next event, like a mirror that doesn't reflect you now. It shows who you'll be when you look again." They didn't speak for a while. The only sound in the room was the low hum of the server racks, an eerie echo of the same tone that had filled every corrupted clip. Eventually, Aaron pulled up the recovered server logs from the precinct basement. At first, it looked like ordinary system code. Upload timestamps, encryption keys, user tags. But at the bottom of the log was a string of text that didn't belong to any known format. A message, written in the metadata itself. "The recording is watching back." Marco laughed nervously. "Cute. Some hacker's idea of a joke." Aaron didn't answer. She was scrolling further, and her face drained of color. "Marco, this message wasn't added by anyone external. Look, it's embedded in the firmware. It's been there since the network was built." They traced the firmware back through archives, finding that the Bodycam system had been updated statewide exactly 6 months before the Sandpiper incident. A contract with a new supplier, Myriad Vision Technologies. The documentation was sparse, half of it redacted, but one clause stood out. "All recorded material will be automatically integrated into predictive analytics software to enhance response accuracy." Predictive analytics, meaning the cameras weren't just recording reality. They were trying to anticipate it. The longer the system ran, the more it learned what should happen next. And sometimes, when the pattern didn't match, it corrected it. "What if it started seeing patterns we couldn't?" Marco said quietly. "What if it stopped showing us what was and started forcing what would be?" Aaron scrolled to the final log entry. The timestamp was 11/14/2025, 12:44:13 p.m. Beneath it, root file. "Officer Rake, continued transmission successful," she whispered, almost to herself. "He's still uploading." They pulled the main drive from the system and disconnected the network, isolating the servers. But the moment the cable came loose, every monitor in the building flickered on. Grainy footage filled the screens. The Sandpiper house again, the hallway, the same static glow. Then a new angle appeared, one no one had seen before. A camera looking out from inside the wall, as if the building itself had eyes. It showed Aaron and Marco standing in the evidence room, frozen, staring at the monitors. The timestamp in the corner rolled forward by 10 minutes. Aaron took a step back. "Marco, it's live. It's showing us in real time." "No," he whispered. "Look closer." She did. The video wasn't showing them standing now. It showed what they'd be doing in 10 minutes. Marco unplugging the last server, Aaron watching the screen behind him, her face pale. Then, from the corner of the frame, something moved toward her. Something tall, featureless. The outline of a man in uniform. The footage cut to black. When the tech team entered the room later, both detectives were gone. The servers were offline, their casings warped as if melted from the inside. The only thing left was a single USB drive plugged into the wall socket. It contained one file, no date, no name, just a black thumbnail. When investigators opened it, they found exactly 3 seconds of footage. A close-up of a Bodycam lens, a faint reflection of someone holding it, and a whisper, so quiet it was almost lost in the static. "Keep watching." There's something unsettling about cameras, isn't there? We invented them to witness the truth. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that they also preserve it. They don't forget, they don't forgive, and they don't look away. Every second we capture is a piece of time we've trapped, like amber around a fly. And if you trap enough moments, maybe one day, the moments start to notice. The investigators never recovered Officer Daniel Rake. The department was dissolved quietly, its servers destroyed under federal order. And yet, every few months, small-town stations across the country report Bodycam desync errors. Each one logs a single identical frame. A man in uniform standing in a dark hallway. Timestamp 12:44, 13 p.m. Most officers dismiss it as a software bug. But there are a few, the ones who know what happened on Sandpiper Lane, who won't wear body cams anymore. They say sometimes, when you stare into the lens too long, you feel like it's breathing with you. Maybe the footage never stopped. Maybe the network never really turned off. Maybe it just needed new eyes. And maybe, right now, as you sit there watching this video, your reflection on the screen looks just a little different. Maybe your face lingers a split second longer than it should when you look away. After all, it's only recording. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications, because next time we'll be looking into another real case that should have never been seen. But until then, check your cameras and don't look too long. And that was the footage they tried to erase. If you're still here, listening in the dark, then welcome back, or maybe welcome home, to Last Seen. This Halloween, I'm not just posting stories, I'm opening the vault. Every night this week, a new case, a new mystery, the kind that crawls under your skin and whispers questions that don't have answers. Some of these stories were inspired by real incidents. Others were never meant to be public at all. But on Last Seen, we dig up what's been buried. We play what they deleted. And this week, Halloween week, you'll see why some files were never supposed to be found. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because every night at midnight, a new story drops, each one darker, more twisted, and closer to the truth than the last. And while you're here, Leave a comment. Tell me what you think really happened to Officer Rake. Was it the system that broke reality? Or did reality just record something we weren't meant to see? Either way, keep your lights low, your volume high, and remember, some recordings don't just capture what's been seen, they capture what's still watching. You're watching Last Seen, and Halloween has just begun.